All right, so are you ready to dive into this whole blog shareability thing?
Let's do it.
We're talking about how to get those blog posts seen,
Yeah.
out there in the vast wilderness of the internet.
It's a jungle out there.
It really is.
Mm.
But luckily, we've got a great guide to help us navigate it.
Oh, yeah. The insights from Mihigo ER Anaja on his All Reflections website are fantastic.
Yeah, he really gets right to the heart of it.
Uh-huh.
Before we get into all the fancy strategies,
Yeah.
he emphasizes something that seems pretty basic.
Okay.
High-quality content.
He's not wrong, though.
Of course not.
Yeah.
But we all know the internet's full of good writing.
Exactly. I mean, it's not enough to just write well these days.
So what's the secret sauce? What makes content stand out in this crowded online world?
Mihigo is talking about content that goes beyond just being good. It's about providing real value to the reader.
I like that.
Think about it. Solving a problem, teaching a skill, offering a new perspective.
Oh, I see. Giving your audience that aha moment that makes them want to share what they just learned.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's less about perfect grammar
Right.
and more about hitting that sweet spot of being both useful and engaging.
Totally. If someone finds your blog post genuinely helpful, they're way more likely to tell their friends about it.
Which brings us to Mihigo's next point. Attention-grabbing headlines.
Oh, yeah, because even the best content in the world won't get shared if nobody clicks on it.
He actually uses some pretty strong headlines in his own article.
Like what?
Well, there's how to increase shareability of your blog contents, which is super straightforward.
Clear and to the point.
Then there's 12 effective strategies to make your blog posts more shareable, which uses that number to kind of pique your interest.
It makes you wonder what those 12 strategies are.
Right. What kind of headlines usually make you want to click?
For me, it's the headlines that promise a solution to a problem or offer a new way of thinking.
That makes sense. We're all searching for answers, and those headlines give us hope that we might actually find them.
It's like a little mini promise you're making to the reader.
And speaking of making your content pop, Mihigo doesn't skimp on the importance of visuals.
He's spot on there. Visuals help us cut through the clutter in our information-saturated world.
I like how he uses images and diagrams in his own guide.
Yeah.
They actually break down those complex concepts and make the information so much easier to digest.
It's like giving your readers a visual shortcut, which is super helpful these days when everyone's so pressed for time.
Exactly. And remember that infographic he uses to illustrate the different types of blog content that get shared the most.
Oh, yeah, that was clever.
Not only does it make the information more memorable, but it also makes it way more shareable.
People are drawn to things that look good and are easy to understand. It's like visual candy.
Speaking of making things easy to share, did you notice how Mihigo uses social sharing buttons and click-to-tweet quotes throughout his article?
Oh, absolutely. It makes sharing his content so simple, just a couple of clicks and you're done.
He's really practicing what he preaches, isn't he?
For sure. And by doing that, he's removing any obstacles in the sharing process.
It's like he's paving the way for people to share his content.
And that can make a big difference in how far your blog's reach extends.
Now, while we're talking about making things easy, he brings up another crucial point: mobile optimization.
That is a big one, especially these days.
Think about how much time we spend on our phones now browsing the web.
It's crazy.
Imagine trying to read a blog post on your phone that's all jumbled and hard to read.
I would just give up.
Mihigo knows this.
Yeah.
And he emphasizes that having a mobile-friendly blog is absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
Especially considering how much social media happens on phones and tablets.
If your blog isn't optimized for mobile, you're basically ignoring a huge part of your potential audience.
Not a good look.
Yeah.
It also sends a message that you don't really care about your reader's experience.
And that can definitely affect whether or not they decide to share your content.
Speaking of influencing decisions, Mihigo brings up an interesting concept called social proof.
Oh, yeah. The idea that people are more likely to share something that's already been shared by others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like that whole, if everyone else is doing it, it must be good mentality.
It's a powerful psychological thing, We tend to follow the crowd, especially online.
And you can see it everywhere. Think about how many times you've clicked on an article just because it had a ton of shares or likes.
I do that all the time. It's like a built-in recommendation system.
And Mihigo uses it strategically in his own article. He displays how many times it's been shared, and he links to his other platforms like his podcast and YouTube channel.
He's subtly letting us know that other people are already finding his content valuable.
It makes us more likely to trust him and more likely to share his content ourselves.
It's a smart strategy. It plays on our desire to be part of a community and to share information that we think is helpful.
Makes total sense. So far, we've covered quality content, catchy headlines, the power of visuals, making sharing easy, mobile optimization, and the psychology of social proof.
Wow, that's a lot to take in.
It is, but we've got even more to explore.
So, one thing that can really boost your blog's shareability is evergreen content.
Evergreen content.
Yeah, it's basically content that stays relevant and valuable over time.
Ah, so instead of chasing the latest trends,
Mhm.
you focus on creating content that has that lasting appeal.
Mhm.
I can see why our listeners, those lifelong learners, would appreciate that.
Exactly. They're always looking for knowledge that stands the test of time. Think about things like personal finance tips or guides to improving productivity.
Those are definitely topics that people are always searching for.
Right. And foundational principles in any field, really. Those are things that people will need to know regardless of what's trending on Twitter at the moment.
That makes a lot of sense. But how do you actually figure out which evergreen topics will work for your specific audience?
It all starts with understanding your audience, their core interests, their
Yeah.
challenges.
Yeah.
What are their long-term goals? What are those burning questions they're always trying to find answers to?
So for someone with a blog about personal development, those evergreen topics might be things like goal setting,
Uh-huh.
building self-confidence, or managing stress.
Exactly. Those are timeless themes that people are always going to grapple with.
It's like tapping into those universal human experiences
Mhm.
and then offering insights that will still be relevant years down the line.
You got it. And by creating this evergreen content, you're not just giving your readers something valuable in the moment,
Yeah.
you're also setting yourself up for long-term success. As people keep searching for information on those topics, your content will keep popping up in search results.
And getting shared on social media.
Absolutely. It's like you're building a content library that keeps on giving. Now let's switch gears a bit and talk about community engagement.
Okay, community engagement sounds important, but it can also feel kind of overwhelming,
I know what you mean.
especially when you're first starting out. Where do you even begin?
Well, think about how you build relationships in real life.
You talk to people?
Exactly. You have conversations, you listen to what they have to say, you show genuine interest. Building a community online is kind of similar.
So it's less about broadcasting your message and more about creating a space where people feel comfortable interacting and sharing their own thoughts.
Exactly. Mihigo is great at this with his blog. He's always responding to comments,
Oh, yeah.
asking questions, encouraging dialogue. He creates that sense of belonging that makes people want to stick around and contribute to the conversation.
It's like turning your blog into a virtual hangout spot where people can connect over shared interests.
Yeah.
I can definitely see how that sense of community can make people more likely to share your content.
It's like word of mouth marketing, but in the digital world.
Yeah.
And speaking of digital marketing, Mihigo is a big fan of strategic content promotion.
Strategic content
No,
promotion.
he emphasizes that you can't just create great content and expect people to magically find it. You have to get it out there into the world.
That makes sense, but there's so many platforms and channels these days. How do you know where to focus your energy?
That's where understanding your target audience really comes into play. You got to figure out where they hang out online. Is it Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn? Each platform has its own vibe, its own demographic.
It's like speaking different languages depending on who you're talking to.
Exactly. You wouldn't talk to a group of executives the same way you'd chat with your buddies. You have to adapt your message and your style to match the platform and the people using it.
Right. It's about being strategic and targeting the places where your ideal readers are most likely to see your content.
That's the key. And that's what Mihigo stresses in his guide. You got to understand your audience and you got to meet them where they are.
Okay, so we've got strategic content promotion covered. But there's one more piece of the puzzle that I want to talk about. Understanding your audience's motivations.
Oh, yeah. Mihigo talks a lot about the importance of writing for your audience, not just at them. It sounds simple, but it's easy to forget.
It's easy to get caught up in our own thoughts and forget that we're trying to connect with real people who have their own needs and desires.
Exactly. And that's where empathy comes in. Put yourself in your reader's shoes. Ask yourself, what are they looking for? What are their struggles? What kind of content would make them go, wow, I need to share this?
So it's about shifting from what do I want to say to what does my audience need to hear?
You got it. And that requires really understanding your target audience. Who are they? What are their values? What are they hoping to achieve? The more you know about your readers, the better you can create content that speaks directly to them.
It's like building a bridge of understanding between you and your audience.
Yeah.
And when that connection is strong, Shareability happens naturally.
Absolutely. When people feel like you get them and you're providing something truly valuable, they want to share that with others.
It's all about building that trust and becoming a go-to resource for your readers.
Yeah.
And, one really effective way to do that is to provide content that's not just informative,
Uh-huh.
but also actionable.
He emphasizes that a lot. It's not enough to just present information. You got to show people how to use it in their lives. Give them concrete steps, tools, examples they can relate to.
Empower them to actually do something with the information they're learning.
Exactly. And when people see results, they're more likely to share their success with others.
It's like creating a ripple effect of positive change.
That's a great way to put it.
Now let's dive into another key element of making content actionable: calls to action. Mihigo believes that a well-placed call to action can make a big difference in encouraging sharing.
For sure, but it's got to be done right.
I was going to say, doesn't that come across as kind of pushy?
It can if you're not careful. It's not about being aggressive or demand. It's about gently nudging your readers in the right direction.
So more like a friendly invitation.
Yeah, like saying, hey, if you found this helpful, share it with your friends, or what are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments.
So you're inviting people to join the conversation, to share their own perspectives. It's like you're creating a more collaborative space.
Exactly. And when people feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves, they're more likely to go that extra mile and share.
It's about tapping into that desire to connect with others and be part of something meaningful.
Wow, this has been so insightful. We've covered a lot of ground today, from evergreen content to community building to strategic promotion. But I feel like you've just scratched the surface.
There's always more to learn when it comes to making your blog shareable.
True.
But even with what we've talked about today, our listeners have a great starting point for creating a blog that people actually want to share.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, successes and setbacks. But as long as you keep putting in the effort and you genuinely want to connect with your audience, you can create a blog that makes a real impact.
It's amazing how much thought goes into making a blog something people actually want to share.
I know, right? There's a real art to it.
It's not just luck or random chance. There's a science to it.
Totally. And Mihigo lays it all out for us.
He really does. So for all our listeners out there who are getting ready to launch their own blogs or maybe give their existing ones a little makeover, this episode's for you. Let's recap those key takeaways so you can really put them into practice.
Sounds good.
All right, first up, and we can't stress this enough, high-quality content.
It's the foundation.
It is. But remember, it's not just about writing well. It's about delivering real value to your reader.
Solving their problems, teaching them something new, giving them a fresh perspective.
That's what gets those shares rolling in. And once you've got that awesome content, you need a killer headline to match.
Oh, for sure. The headline is so important.
It's like a promise you're making to the reader. It should grab their attention and make them eager to learn more.
Mihigo talks about using strong verbs, numbers, even questions in your headlines to make them stand out.
It's like the storefront for your blog. You want something that's eye-catching and inviting.
Exactly. And don't forget about the power of visuals.
Oh, yeah. Mihigo's a big believer in those.
He uses them all the time in his own work.
And for good reason. In this age of information overload, visuals can really help cut through the noise.
They make things easier to understand, more engaging.
Plus, they make those complex ideas more digestible. And let's be honest, they just look good.
A well-placed image or infographic can really take your blog post to the next level.
Definitely. And speaking of making things easy, we've got to talk about how simple Mihigo makes it for people to share his content.
Oh yeah, those social sharing buttons and click-to-tweet quotes are so smart.
They remove all the friction from the sharing process so people can spread the word with just a couple of clicks.
It's like you're laying out the welcome mat for social media.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of making things user-friendly, mobile optimization is non-negotiable.
Couldn't agree more. If your blog isn't mobile-friendly, you're missing it.
People are browsing on their phones more than ever before.
If they land on your blog and it's a jumbled mess, they're going to bounce right off.
No one wants to pinch and zoom their way through a blog post.
It's a terrible user experience, and it sends a message that you don't really care about your readers.
Mihigo stresses that mobile optimization is all about creating a seamless and enjoyable experience for everyone.
And when people have a positive experience on your blog, they're more likely to share it with others.
Speaking of influencing decisions, we've got to talk about social proof.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
The idea that people are more likely to share something that's already been shared by a bunch of other people.
We're social creatures. We like to follow the crowd.
It's like that herd mentality. If everyone else is doing it, it must be good.
And Mihigo uses it brilliantly in his own article. He displays how many shares it's gotten, he links to his other platforms.
It's a subtle way of saying, hey, look, other people are finding this valuable, you should too.
Works like a charm. Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about building community.
This is something Mihigo really emphasizes.
It's so crucial for long-term success.
But with so much noise online, how do you actually cultivate that sense of community?
It's about being present, being responsive, engaging with your readers, treating them like real people.
Mihigo's great at this. He always responds to comments, asks questions, encourages dialogue.
It makes people feel valued, like they're part of something special.
And when people feel like they belong, they're more likely to stick around and spread the word.
It's like you're creating a little online family.
I love that analogy.
Well,
Now, before we wrap up, I want to touch on one final point, understanding your audience.
this is so important and so often overlooked.
It's easy to get caught up in our own heads and forget that we're writing for other people.
Right. We need to put ourselves in our readers' shoes, understand their needs, their desires, their struggles.
Ask ourselves, what are they looking for? What would make them want to share this with their friends?
It's about shifting from what do I want to say to what does my audience need to hear?
And the more you understand your audience, the better you can tailor your content to their specific interests.
Which will ultimately make it more shareable. So there you have it, folks, a crash course in blog shareability.
Huge thanks to Mihigo ER Anaja for sharing his insights. We've covered so much ground today, from high-quality content to catchy headlines to mobile optimization.
It's a lot to take in, but I think we've given our listeners a great foundation for building blogs that people will love to share.
Remember, it's all about providing value, connecting with your audience, and making it easy for them to spread the word.
And most importantly, have fun with it.
Absolutely. That's it for this deep dive into the world of blog shareability.
Until next time, happy blogging, everyone.
See you next time.